right, I'd like to call to order the 6:30 Planning Board meeting for this evening, January 19th, 2023. And let's go ahead and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening. I would like to first introduce our planning board members. To my left is Mr. Jerry Grable, myself, acting chair, and normally vice chair, Phil Roy. To my right, Dan Ganarelli, CJ Haldek, okay? And via Zoom, we have Paul Amatucci and Matt Henry. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. So we'll go ahead and open the first public comment. I know last time it was somewhat contentious, so I just want to reiterate the planning board rules of engagement for public hearings. We ask that you come up to the podium. Please speak clearly and into the microphone. If you don't speak into the microphone, they can't hear you out in television land, and it will not make it to the recording. Okay, so please step up to the mic. Each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak. If you would like to come up for a second round, you'll be allotted a second round at 2 minutes for further comment.
3 minutes.
Or 3 minutes. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. At this time, we'll go ahead and we will open the public comment.
You want me to do a quick presentation before? Just
yes, please, if you could. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Neil.
And Neil, you're going to answer the questions that you got over the last 2+ weeks.
Yeah, and I think yeah, there weren't many as far as review comments, but I will address everything that has come my way at least. So.
Take 6 minutes.
Okay. So my name is Neil Raposa. I'm with Civil Consultants here on behalf of Pine Hill Realty for this residential development that sits between Pine Hill Road and Cemetery Road. I'll take this and just walk to the plan and indicate what's been done since the last meeting. I brought the full set for presentation in case anyone has any questions on any of the other sheets here. So, I did just want to clarify on this one. I think there was some misunderstanding at the last meeting. The development that's shown here, this takes up all the density for everything right up to these two lots that are split off the end on Cemetery Road. So nothing can be built at all from this line all the way down to here. In order to utilize this land and get this many units up front here. So I think that was a little confusing because there was a label over here that said 10 units, and that doesn't indicate a future 10 units here. That means this whole piece is needed to get these 10 units in here. So here is the 10-unit condo development. There haven't been too many changes since the last meeting. What we did do is we pulled up the driveway to go slightly further north on Pine Hill to allow the outgoing lane here to have its lights shine towards the other side of this property, so it would be pointing more towards that kind of the end of the garage instead of pointing right at the main house. So we were able to do that. We redid the site distances. It didn't change going downhill. Going up the hill, it reduced it by 10 feet to 580 feet, which is still well over the 350, I believe it is, for this road at this speed. We did adjust the property line of the private way that we're building, so we could keep that driveway 10 feet off of the property line. So we kicked that over and adjusted our plans to accommodate that. Beyond that, we haven't made any changes to this plan beyond some things that were requested by Lee J. There was a note that had been left off one of the plans with regard to who's owning that right-of-way. So we added that to the plan. And there were some just small housekeeping things like that. The one thing we don't have specifically addressed on this plan since the last meeting is what is going to be requested for screening or fencing at this property line. We would like to take input on that to see what one the abutters request and what code enforcement ends up determining that should be, to separate these uses. The applicant's willing to put whatever separation there is required. So I think the rest, I'd love to hear your comments and address them after.
If anybody would like to come up for first public comment.
So my name's Heather English. I'm at 159 Pine Hill Road. We actually, the abutters got together since the last meeting, and we compiled a document that we hope has everybody's comments in it, so there would be less. No one really knew what was going to happen at the meeting last time. So I feel like we all were kind of, confused. So we did this document together, and anyway. So the first thing is, and I know he just addressed a couple things, but I want to just read everything that's on our document. So Mary, who was here last time, who lives on Cemetery Road, was concerned about the water runoff onto her property because she's already having water that's going into her garage, and so she was worried about going into her basement. So we just want to make sure that issue is not going to become more because of this complex. We know that there is a water system in place, but if she were to have issues, that she has a recourse for that. Historic rock walls must not be touched or altered, but buffer vegetation must be planted and maintained so that the aesthetics and tranquility of the surrounding properties are maintained. The proposed road into the complex faces the living area of Chris's house. This you already talked about, but will cause headlights to flood his living room. If it could be shifted to the right, cause the headlights to point into his garage, which is much more tolerable. The access area running along the rock wall can never be paved nor used as an access road. Access to the back properties must be from Cemetery Road. Bamboo has been found on this lot and is an extremely invasive species. It has been isolated by the previous resident and not found on any surrounding properties. This must continue, and Pine Hill Realty would be responsible for removing the bamboo if construction or lack of maintenance caused it to migrate onto adjacent properties. Lot 1 will always be a single-family residence, not split into apartments that would increase traffic flow, nor torn down in townhouses or condos built. It's zoned right now, I think, that way anyway, but, we just kind of wanted to make sure. We do feel strongly about additional traffic on Pine Hill Road in a bend that's already problematic, but that was kind of talked to death last time, so just wanted to make sure it was mentioned. The 30-foot utility easement that runs along the entire rock wall from Pine Hill to Cemetery, and I do have a copy of this too, I can give you guys a copy, because I see you all furiously writing, but is it the intent to dig 15 feet from the rock wall? We want to make sure the rock wall itself and trees along are not damaged or destroyed, and confirm that you will maintain and cut easement and not let it grow wild. Sufficient conifers and deciduous trees between the unit's back patio area and 160 Pine Hill for privacy. If trees die or are eaten by wildlife, they will be replaced. Extend the rock wall or install the fence, not chain link, in area where it's missing to provide boundary. That's missing from the end of Lot 2 through Lot 3 and part of Lot 4. For the parking lot, minimal lighting at night so that it's not going to flood the area with light. The wetland area that's just below the parking lot, we want to make sure there's no restriction on the water flow because there's a water flow path from 160 Pine Hill Road. That's the same. Stone markers to be put on lot boundaries. Cannot change the use of lot number 2 beyond proposed, and you said that already, that this is already going to be taken into account. And then there's just one question: does the 30-foot utility easement have the same restrictions as a right-of-way setbacks? Do you want me to give you guys a copy of this, or did you all take your own notes?
If you have an extra copy,
Yeah,
that would
you
be
have a
wonderful.
copy.
Great. Thank you. Maybe one for
Just a second. I'm good with my short name, but I'm good with my short name.
Yeah, no, that's great. Anyone else for public comment?
My name is Lynn Keisker, Keisker. One initial comment, I looked at the minutes from the last meeting, and for some reason, my husband's name is written as Craig Hurd, and my name is written as Teresa Hurd, and I'm not sure why that is, but it's Craig Keisker and Lynn Keisker. A couple other things that just before we came down, my husband and I were talking. There were a couple other things. We saw that they're going to be putting a dumpster apparently in, and I couldn't tell. It doesn't say where the dumpster is going to be, how often. I mean, I know that right now they may not know how often it's going to be emptied, but it needs to. We want to make sure. Is it going to be down in that parking area, which is right adjacent to our property? How often? We want to make sure it's cleaned up timely, so that it doesn't become a mess. Also, when we were here last time, we asked about how many bedrooms in the units, and we were told that they're expected to be 2 bedrooms. But on the information that we were looking at, it says that the project as proposed to accommodate 30 bedrooms. So, I mean, it should be 20, not 30. I don't know. I mean, that's not what we were told, I guess. We were told it would be 2, but now they're saying 30 bedrooms, which sounds like 3 bedrooms. So that's a point that we'd like to, find out a little bit more information about. The cemetery road, there was also something in there about not intending on putting a road. I think this was in the revised impact traffic analysis. And I think the verbiage is just kind of odd. I mean, it's just 2 entrances for 2 separate lots. And there shouldn't be a road being put in there anyway. I just didn't, the verbiage was just kind of different. I think that's all that I had. I guess I did have a little question about when you first started, when you said that last meeting was contentious and that we had timed responses this time. Why is that changed, and who allows that, and how do you guys, because, I mean, last time we did have a lot of questions. It was our initial meeting. This is the first time that a lot of us have been here and done anything like this, and a lot of it's new to us. I mean, and it's affecting our lives and where we live, so
Absolutely.
I don't think that what we did was wrong in any way, that's for sure.
It was not my intent to imply that anybody did anything wrong. Change is always difficult. And it does. This is the process of how things are handled with the town.
So who decides like timing and stuff like that?
So that is voted on by the board and by the selectmen. So we do have a policy that, and I know that sometimes when we do have contentious items that come before the board, that there is a certain amount of leniency that is given, because we're here to serve you guys. Without you guys, we don't have a job. All right,
that's right.
And it's the best interest of, and it's not a well-paying job. It doesn't pay at all. We're all volunteers.
I understand. I don't know how you guys do it.
Just to be clear, we have your best interest at heart, but we also have to balance that with what is legal within the confines of laws and rules that are voted on by the town. And that's where the public hearing procedure comes from. That is actually voted on and approved by the Board of Selectmen. And we can provide you a copy of that. But and I think a lot of times we end up being a lot more lenient because this is pretty cut and dry, left and right end limits, and we want to hear from you.
I think that's all that I have right now.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is John. John Uzzle from 159 Pine Hill Road.
How do you spell your last name, sir?
Uzzle.
Thank you.
Not a problem. I think there was, because I don't have the actual map in front of me to go through everything. I was just curious As to, yep, sorry. I was just curious to the snow storage and so forth with removal and everything. I know, because we walk through the trailer park a lot, and there's definitely a snow storage issue, and I was just wondering what that's going to be like with this project. That's pretty much all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Craig Keisker, 160 Pine Hill Road. We read in this about how I believe civil consultants talk with the superintendent and also our town supervisor. Somehow they cut a deal where only twice a year the school gives us whether they can take more, whatever they do. They fill out a form, and because as we read before we had read that today, this in any development, I'm just picking on this one, bigger one, smaller one. It was interesting to learn that they have to have 20% capacity in our classrooms. No way, we're building little houses out of them. We voted down building the last school. I mean, I'll bet money that I can go to the superintendent right now, and they're not going to tell me they have 20% capacity in the classroom. And even if this doesn't weigh a factor tonight, I would like to see this, you group of people here start really making them write down each year. So you, at this 6-month interval, when the superintendent brings, you can say what the cost and effect was for all the permits you wrote during that time, because you were binded by law and had to do what your job is. I'm not trying to be personal about it, but I think that number, as we plan for the future and do things, is incredibly important. And I think I don't think you do it right now. That we don't add it up. We don't have a number on each project of this proposed, whatever it is, 10 students or whatever they're estimating, that we don't end up with 2 kids in a room and whatever in these places and get a few more or whatever. And it's not just schools, it's everything. So they ask for a written thing from your water, from your sewer, and I understand they speak, but is it you guys that agree, the superintendent and the town supervisor cut the deal on every 6 months instead of, I mean, we pay a lot for a school district. If we need an answer, we should be able to get it at any time, right? We
We'll be able to
truly
speak
go to
that.
any.
We'll be able to speak to that later, and we have some hard data that we can provide you that shows the, and it's actually, it was, I don't know the right term, but it was surprising to me to see that we actually had a drop-off in school attendance, and with the influx of adding new residents and new building permits, we're actually at still below capacity. So, but we'll provide you that information in the next comment section, sir.
With the 20% or with capacity at the level that
I can let Mr. Andreessen
you guys'
speak to
rules
that,
we
but-
read the 20% in. This isn't a number I came up with or
Yes, sir.
anything. This was in your literature. Okay? The other thing is, and a lot of it's because of bamboo. When they sell everything, who's responsible then, and how do I get hold of them if bamboo starts creeping over the property? You know what I mean? I mean, is there any way you guys can give me insurance that way or anything? I mean, it's on the property. And, we all know what bamboo does. And I really would like to know how that is guaranteed, that these people can come in, develop our land, leave our town, and leave behind whatever they want. And then I still, as I asked you last time, and they said, I just don't understand the rules on easements and setbacks and the 30 feet and how far, and whether that land is like a right-of-way. It shouldn't be counted in overall square footage for developable land. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, let's see. Okay. Approval of minutes from the
Excuse me.
January. Go ahead, Dave.
Are you going to close the public comment? The
Yes, sir.
public hearing?
Yes, sir. At this time, we'll close the public hearing. And the next item, approval of minutes for January 5th, 2022.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for January 5th, 2022, or 2023, excuse me.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion. I will abstain from voting because I was not present, so you are a yes?
Yes.
Yes? Yes. Yes. Paul?
I abstain, I was not here.
Okay, excellent. And Matt?
Aye.
Matt is a yes. Okay. We will accept the planning board minutes as drafted. All right, and old business, preliminary major subdivision, map 36, lot 38, the Berwicks, Pine Hill Road and Cemetery Road civil consultants.
We got Neil Raposa, Civil Consultants. I don't know if you want me to run through every question that the public brought up, or if you had specific ones you wanted me to focus on, or however you want to.
I believe there's some that were already addressed. So the ones that you have already addressed, I think you could pass those because you brought those up in your opening statement. But to the others that were not addressed, do you have the list that was
yes, I got a
provided?
copy of the list.
Yeah, if you could speak to each of those items, that would be great.
Okay, and if there's one that I say I've addressed and you don't think I've adequately addressed, just stop me. I'll go right back.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So one, the water running into Mary's lot, we did try to address that with the initial design, super elevating that road and trying to get everything back into the property so we could control it and get it down to that level spreader near the wetland and attempt to avoid getting any water through the site to her property. So theoretically, we should be improving her situation that she's dealing with currently. The historic rock wall must not be touched or altered. That's kind of a given for anything that's abutting between abutting properties. We won't be impacting that except for any kind of clearing of the vegetation there that needs to be done to clean it up to either install the new vegetation or new landscaping or to get any of the grading that we need done in there. But the rock walls themselves, we're not really allowed to impact any of the rock walls since they're generally property line markers. So, the road into the complex facing Chris's house, and that one we did put quite a bit of effort into moving that roadway and getting over as far as we could, and still make the entrance and the private right of way work in there. And we were able to move it over just a little over 10 feet. So now it's faced at an angle away from the house, and it's towards the garage. So I think it will be a much better situation. And I'm glad they brought that up. 'Cause that's something we wouldn't want to build it and see that a year into the future and have it be an issue. So access area running along the rock wall, never be paved, used as an access road. And that one we discussed at the last meeting because we're maxed out at our coverage right now, so we wouldn't be able to pave it even if we wanted to. It would be against the DEP permitting. So the bamboo on the lot, that it's something that could be written into the condo documents that any growth that was beyond the landscaping shown on the plans would need to be trimmed and maintained. Once you have a condo document and you have something that has to be adhered to, you'll have the condo board, and there'll be a system there that will be in charge of doing all the maintenance that's required in those condo docs, and that's generally it ends up being kind of its own little government, and someone usually takes charge and makes sure everything is done. I know I live in a condo complex myself, and they're pretty stringent. So those documents are being written up now. Jim Mundy of Clark and Howell is doing that for the applicant, and we had a discussion just this morning. And although the final condo docs do not need to be presented and approved by the planning board, we will have a draft of them for the final, and then those will need to be reviewed and approved by the town attorney, and Irish and Dave will also be, and Lee J will be going through those to make sure they're hitting all the points that we need to meet. And I think that's really the only way we can actively address bamboo not as an invasive species getting off the lot, is just to keep the maintenance up of the final landscaped area as is. If the board is to make condition that all bamboo will be removed from site and not stockpiled, something like that, I think that's a condition that would be
Would you guys be amenable to that?
that would be fine. Yeah, it'd be just a
That's an
construction.
easy fix.
I already wrote that down.
Okay.
That's an easy one.
Right. Site, you'll have an opportunity in the second public comment, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are we doing another public comment or?
There's a.
There will be another
Okay.
public
Yes.
comment, not a public hearing, but there will be a
Gotcha.
public
Yeah.
comment
Yeah.
at the end of the meeting.
All right. And then lot one will be a single-family residence, and currently that's the only thing that can be, that's sized for at the moment. So that's, unless zoning changes, that's what that's going to have to remain as. So that I'm not sure if that's just inherently met, or if there's any restrictions you wanted to see on there. Additional traffic on Pine Hill Road at that bend. That is something I did go out and speak with Jody from Public Works to go out and take a look at it. And he said the location it's at is actually better for visibility there. And he said that any issues that arise would be from the speed of the users of Pine Hill Road. He admits that the speed is an issue there, but it's not necessarily the location of this would be detrimental to the overall safety of the road. So I basically just had him summarize that in an email, and that was the review I got from him. The 30-foot wide utility easement running along the rock wall. Had to dig 15 feet from the rock wall, and to make sure the rock wall itself, trees are not damaged or destroyed. And that is any of those trees that are within 10 feet of that wall will have to be maintained, and the wall itself will not be touched. We won't be able to get close enough to that wall to damage it. We have to stay a minimum of 10 feet off the line there. So we have 10 feet, and then 10 feet to the water, and then 10 feet to the other side of the easement. So every utility has its own section that it has to stay in. Sufficient conifer deciduous trees between the Backings patio area and 160 Pine Hill for privacy. Trees eaten or die or eaten by wildlife, they will be replaced. Generally, that will be included in the condo docs as well. They want to make sure all the landscaping stays up to snuff and everything looks good out there, so that it doesn't impact the values for all the other condos. Because in the end, these are 10 homes, and if one person's being negligent and not maintaining their landscaping behind their unit, it reflects poorly on all of them. So generally, that'll be something that's handled by the condo board, and they will be in charge of maintaining everything and hiring whoever needs to be involved to make sure everything stays as it was intended. As far as the density and species there, we're open to whatever suggestions if anyone wants a more dense planting scheme there. Developer would be open to it. We're trying to keep it somewhat open, just to maintain some open space behind those units. Those units are the ones that have kind of the better lawn area, so we're trying to maintain that. But if somebody would rather see a line of shade trees or arborvitaes, I know they're not most popular, but if they wanted privacy trees, those are generally the densest thing you can get out there. So we're open to any suggestions or requests for plantings out there that the board has. So. Extend the rock wall or install fence in the area where it's missing to provide boundary missing from the ends of Lot 2 and Lot 3. And I'm assuming that's... I'm looking at it's this portion through here, and that, I'm not sure that for this project, that would be something we'd be involved with here. It's really out in the undeveloped portion, and I don't think it'd be required for additional fencing to go out there. Proposed parking lot, minimal lighting at night, and it is it's intended to be, as minimal lighting as we can have and maintain a safe area. So it's not intended to be a fully lit commercial space. It's more just for as little visibility as you need, and not be creating a light spillage on any other lots, or being a nuisance to even the units that are right next to that parking lot. So I think that's addressed with the plan. The wetland area just below parking lot. No restriction on water flow path from 160 Pine Hill, and that is, I guess that one's also inherently taken care of with the plan. We did keep that wetland completely open and unobstructed. We're not proposing any wetland impacts on this. We don't want to get into the wetland at all. We try to avoid it whenever we can, and try and maintain that natural resource. And so that filter that we have there, if anything, water, if it hits the berm of the filter, would be directed back into that wetland. And the water coming off the parking lot is actually going to be treated by that filter. So we have a effluent that's coming out of that filter that's going to be as close to natural runoff as we can get. So stone markers to be put on lot boundaries. I'm not sure if that's a standard condition of approval in Berwick or not. I couldn't remember, but that's something if it's made a condition, the applicant I think would be agreeable to that, because we really only have 7 boundaries. So I think if it is made a condition, we'd be agreeable to that one. Cannot change use area of Lot 2 beyond proposed parking lots and buildings up to Lot 3, and that is correct. That's kind of what I went over at the beginning. What's shown on here is what would have to be built with this application. Any changes to this would have to scrap that entire thing and come in with a whole new application to do something else. So what's shown here is all we propose and all that could be built with this application.
So there is no future plans for developing any of that?
Correct. Yep. It's impossible the way the zoning and the density is, that we couldn't get anything more out there, even if they wanted to try. So, okay, we'll go into the next group. I think that takes care of those. And the dumpster in that back parking lot, and that was intended. We were showing a dumpster here with recycling and just a small residential dumpster on that side. That was put in there because we had the space to do that and accommodate that. And also we wanted to show it so we'd have the ability to, if in the future that had to be put in, it was shown on here and everyone knew that it was going in. If it comes to it and the developer realizes that it's not necessary to have that dumpster there, it may go away, and it may just be everyone takes their trash in and out like a normal household. But I did want to leave a space and show that we are accommodating for it if need be, if it has to be put in there. That's another thing that we'll be discussing as he goes through the condo docs, because that's going to be something that's going to be regulated by that. And the bedrooms, and that was after I spoke with the applicant and discussed it with him. He did say he wanted to make sure that we'd be able to get 3-bedroom units in there because his floor plans would accommodate, a small 3rd bedroom. So he wanted to have the opportunity to do that. So I just said, okay, we're going to be doing all 3 bedrooms just to make sure it was accommodated for when I was doing the values for traffic and things like that. It doesn't affect the actual traffic numbers, but it affects how many prospective students would be going to the school system, things like that. So I accounted for that in the latest documentation that we put in. There's going to be a road put into cemetery. Nope, there's no changes to Cemetery Road or entrances to Cemetery Road are proposed except for the 2 driveways that will be put in whenever those lots are developed by whoever buys those. So you're going to answer the timed public hearing issue. I think you got that covered. So the snow storage area on site is is going to be, we have this area that we widened out at the entrance. Instead of coming straight down, we widened this out so we could get snow storage on this side of this lower building, as well as pulled out to here. That's going to be up on, it's another super elevated portion that we're going to have. That's where going to be the majority of the snow coming down the road is. We pushed onto this bank here. And as that melts, it's intended to be melted down and get back into this our system to catch it and bring it back out to the level spreader and not dump it straight into the wetland to try and treat it as much as possible before it gets into the resource there. And then, of course, the snow would be pushed to the back of the parking lot through here.
Do you guys have any engineered calculations for snow melt and capacity that you'll be able to handle?
No, it's we generally don't do that. What we do is we'll do the stormwater management plan, and that generates. We have to take a storm into account that has 5.2 inches of rain in 24 hours, and that's generally accepted as an acceptable placeholder for a degree days of snow melting that we'd see around here. So. The school capacity, and that's something that civil consultants, as an engineer and developers and the school system have all had a hard time trying to justify, and basically it came down to the fact that the only real way to work that into regulations is to limit the number of building permits, and so that's because you can have 15 houses out there, and one year they have 20 residents in them, and the next year they have 30 because everybody has twins, and it's a hard thing to quantify. So I had been working with Audra to try and come up with something, and that was actually that wasn't my suggestion. I'd kind of fallen out of the loop on that one for a little while, and she just emailed me and said, "We're not going to do the letters per se, but we're going to provide them where we're at every time, every half year." So
I think we have some statistical different data that we can provide this evening that may put that to rest as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. And then the bamboo creep, I think we addressed that previously. And the easement area, is that included in any of the developable land? And the answer is no. We have to take any of the easement area that's going to handle those the sewer and water lines. So that 30-foot strip that runs all the way down the property, it's like he doesn't even, he doesn't own it in the eyes of the density he can develop. So if you, and on the plan, we do note that on our plans here, we give you the gross area, and then we have the utility easement, the wetland, and we deduct those, and we get the net area that we can use to develop, and that's how we determine how many units we can get on that lot. So. And once that easement is approved and recorded, then it's no longer a developable area, and it has to stay out of any kind of density calculations you do on the property. So, unless I missed any, I may have.
I think that covers everything that was brought up.
I did.
Go ahead.
I don't think you missed it, but I think in your eyes, I think, John, Lot 1, single-family unit as it is right now, I think he missed what you were saying. It cannot be more than a single-family unit moving forward unless the town changes the zoning.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
I think that answered. Okay.
Do you want to turn it over to Lee J?
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Lee J., do you have anything to add, sir?
Actually, I do, and I was just looking for something on another part of my computer, and I'll jump back to it just to kind of give you an idea of stuff. I did have some, based on the conversation tonight, I did have some thoughts on additional conditions of approval for you. I believe you have some in front of you from my previous memo, which was just done last week. But based on tonight, let me offer these up, and then I can formalize them tomorrow and send them down to Dave if you choose to use them. Number one is that just as a condition for the plan would be that the rock wall shall never be removed or altered. You know, if that shows up on the plan as a condition, then it's pretty much fait accompli that is stated that way. During construction, all material shall be contained on site to eliminate potential spread of invasive species. Trash receptacle. I know Neil is kind of saying there may not be one, but I think if there is one, it would be a placeholder to protect folks. But trash receptacle shall be emptied during the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. I know sometimes those trash trucks will show up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and clank and bang. And if the condo association or the developer at the time contracts with someone, you know, they can tell them, you need to be here between these times. It's a requirement of the town. Under the monumentation issue, I do have that in front of me from the subdivision requirements, and a note or a condition could be that monuments shall meet the standards of Article 12, Section 12.8 of the subdivision regulations. And just as a note for you on that, it states, stone or precast concrete monuments shall be set at all street intersections and points of curvature, but no further than 750 feet apart along street lines. That's if you're going to have an accepted street, which you're not here. B, stone or precast concrete monuments shall be set at all corners and angle points of the subdivision boundaries, where the interior angle of the subdivision boundary is 135 degrees or less. Stone or concrete monuments shall be a minimum of 4-inch square at the top and 3 feet in length and set in the ground at final grade level. After they are set, drill holes 1/2 inch deep shall locate the point or points described above. And then all other subdivision boundary corners and angle points, as well as all lot boundary corners and angle points, shall be marked by suitable monumentation as required by the Maine Board of Registration of Land Surveyors. Certification that all lot boundary monuments have been placed shall be presented to the code enforcement officer prior to the issuance of any building permits. And I think the last one really covers it, because the state land surveyors do have certain minimum requirements, and so everything else does require stone or concrete. And then the last one is any other locations need to meet the state requirements that the surveyors have established. So I think there's quite a bit of safeguards in that for the folks that were concerned. The other thing was what I was looking at. Hold on a sec. I got to switch between screens here. I apologize. We, as you may know, have been working with the town on a comprehensive plan update. And one of the things that's of interest regarding school-age children, if you will, it doesn't directly say that, but the average household size in the state, and I don't know if we have, we do have your number. So the average household size in the state has decreased from 2.9 people per household in 2000 to 2.29 in 2020. And so it reflects the preferences for smaller families and more people living alone is what's occurring statewide. And in Berwick, the number is 2.36. So that has followed the same trend as the state, and a decrease in the number of people that are living in a home. Now that doesn't indicate how many school-age children, and I'm looking under the documentation, I don't think we actually have stated that, but I think it's fair to say, and we have found it everywhere that we've been working on these things, that even the number of school-age children in schools is declining steadily. So I know that's not a safeguard. I know it doesn't say that you have to that you're going to meet the 20%, but it's a fair deduction that population sizes are decreasing for families, and the number of school-age children is also decreasing across the board. With that, I'll turn it back to you and answer any questions you may have or whatever other assistance you may need of me.
Thank you, Lee J. Mr. Andreessen, would you care to speak to the statistics that you were able to find on the school?
Yeah, and I passed this out to everybody, the abutters as well. 1975, there were 955. That's how many kids from Berwick attended the schools. At the most, in the last 50 years, there was 1,394 students in 2002. And now, we currently have 1,328 students from Berwick attending SAD 60. And those are according to the SAD 60 numbers. And I also, so it's a little bit of a decrease by about 70 students in the last 20 years, but the number has gone down. Now, I first moved to Berwick in 2001, like a lot of people, and then the economy in 2008 really went to a nosedive, and you could see by these numbers that is slowly starting to make a comeback. But these are the numbers according to SAD 60.
Thank you, Dave. All right. We want to go to the next piece of old business, the land use ordinance, and then we can make our motions, or should we make our motions now?
I think you need to talk to Lee J and find out about what you can approve tonight.
Okay.
With this application.
Okay. Lee J, so we are at a point where I would like to recommend some conditions of approval based on what you had recommended and a few that we here at the table have come up with as well. Is this the prudent time to do that?
I think you should certainly discuss it. What I'd suggest is if you can get those to David, even if they're hand done and you've got them in front of you, and then he can get them to me and I can write it up so he can drop them back into the findings of fact for you, because you won't be approving any findings of fact this evening anyway. So we can just put it all together so that everything makes common sense, and David can drop them into the findings of fact for your next meeting.
Is it reasonable to discuss with the developer if they're amenable to those conditions, so we're not wasting administrative effort?
So, sure. I'm just kind of smiling a little bit. I apologize.
No worries, and I'm probably showing my own how naive I am to the process, sir.
It doesn't really matter if they're amenable to the developer or not.
Okay.
If the board feels that there's something that needs to be included as a condition of approval, then you can require that of the developer.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. Go ahead. You have some.
I would like to see any trash receptacle, like a dumpster, that's placed on the property fenced in. Definitely fenced in.
An enclosure.
Yeah.
I think that's
Do you want
required.
to take a list, Dave, of proposed conditions?
I'm taking a list
Roger
via
that.
the recording.
Okay.
Yes.
Understood.
And Lee J's taking a list as well.
Okay. Excellent.
Let's see.
Anything else?
That's for me. That's all for me.
Okay. I agree with the conditions as proposed by Lee J. As they pertain to the rock wall. containment on site, is it within our purview, and is it legal for us to ask the developer to eradicate the existing bamboo, Lee J? Is that something that, is that legal? Or is that a slippery
Yes.
slope?
Yes,
It is? Okay.
as long as it's on their property and not on a butter's property, because then they need
Right.
to obtain easements or permission. But on their property, you can certainly request that they eradicate the bamboo during construction period. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Dumpster service was already addressed, and an enclosure, I would also ask that. The monuments, as a condition of approval for the marking, I think that would answer the mail on that as well. What else did we have? The buffer for along the property line, privacy trees or the other species that he had recommended. That's probably a discussion point, but I think that should be a condition of approval as well. Anything to add?
I just got a question on what was mentioned about what's being done to keep the water from going down onto their property. If they find out after the fact that what they have done has not stopped that, is there a process of helping them out to get that rectified? Can that be a condition, or how does that get addressed?
Yes, there could be a condition.
You know what I'm saying? In other words,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
if they're doing everything they can that they know, but that's not enough and they don't know that until it's actually done.
It could very well be a condition.
Okay. So I think-
So the way I would suggest doing that, David is correct.
Yep.
It could be a condition of the approval. The applicant is going to be required to put some sort of surety in place, letter of credit, bond, and that's going to be include a defect bond that would be for probably a year after the final construction, and that's to make sure that the plants don't die and that sort of thing. So that would also be covered under that part of the bond, so that if once it's completed and we have a rainstorm and we find out that there's an issue going on out there, that money is available to correct any deficiencies in the site.
And Neil, you said that you were already going to do that, correct?
Correct, yeah, and we have, we've approached the developer, we've put together an estimate for the construction so that he has an appropriate amount in a bond for, instances such as that. So that will all have to be reviewed by Lee J and in planning, and that will have to go through there before they'll accept that bond or performance guarantee before they can start construction.
So we're not looking for a motion on this tonight, correct, Dave? We,
I would hold off and let us get everything compiled and the
Okay.
findings of fact and everything, and you could act on it at your next meeting.
okay, thank you, Lee J. Appreciate that guidance.
Well,
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next item on old business is revision of land use ordinance and subdivision regulations with Christy Rabaska.
Is Christy on?
I am.
Hi, Christy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me back.
So,
We're
I'm sorry, Christy. Let me just introduce. Let me just say what this is going to be a change to our land use ordinance. This is going to have to get up to the selectmen. So, if you guys approve this tonight, which I'm hoping it's tonight, I'm going to have to present this to the selectmen, and this is going to have to get voted on at the June election and incorporated. So, what Christy's going to do is she's going to explain it to you guys what is going to be changed in the land use ordinance. So, Christy?
great. Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the document. So and actually, we'll talk, if we could just talk briefly about process, because I think my understanding from the last meeting was that this would need a planning board hearing first, and then it would go to the select board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so tonight would be if you approve the changes that I've made since our last meeting in December, then it would go to a planning board hearing. I think that would be the
Correct, the next meeting.
okay, great. So I'm going to bring up the letter that I provided to Dave in January. Just make sure everyone can see that and that it's large enough for you all. Look good? Is it legible or does it need to be?
I can see it good.
We have hard copies as well.
Fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So yes, I was before the planning board on December 1st and gave you an overview of these requirements. These are requirements from the town's general permit for stormwater discharges from municipal separate storm sewer systems. Your stormwater permit requires changes to incorporate standards for erosion and sedimentation control, and also to require more timely maintenance of private stormwater systems, such as the system that will be installed at the development that you just reviewed, as well as other developments in town. And also require a more timely removal of anything that is illegally dumped into the storm drain system. So those are the 3 sets of changes that we reviewed on December 1st. We went through the 19-page document very carefully on December 1st, and I provided, basically, I have 6 points that I thought I would just review with you. The first 2 are not resulting in changes to the proposal to this 19-page document, but I just wanted to remind you the erosion and sedimentation control changes will apply town-wide, as do other requirements for the the MS4 permit that the town has voluntarily implemented the requirements throughout the town rather than just the urbanized area. So these ESC, erosion sedimentation control, they'll also be the same town-wide. And that you guys also discussed that the way I had written it, allowing certifications for the erosion sedimentation control by a couple of different qualifications that are a little more lenient than the Chapter 500 standards. So you're going to allow these extra certifications in town, the EnviroCert and the main DEP certification program. So no changes to the attachment based on that. A qualified professional doesn't need to do an erosion sedimentation control plan for sites that are smaller than an acre of disturbance. That is only going to apply for larger than an acre. So those are just kind of reminders of how we had it written in December, and you agreed to those changes. So the next 3 items that I have here, so item 3, 4, 5, and 6, these were elements that during your discussions you had requested changes made, so I was just going to review those with you briefly. Item 3 was a requirement to update the definition of the qualified post-construction stormwater inspector. So one of the discussion items was that this inspector needs to not only have some qualifications, but you also wanted to include the restriction that the inspector not have any right, title, or interest. And so page 17 of the document has that additional language, which we have used in other municipalities. So that, I'll show you that in just a second, but also were a few subsequent pages I had to make changes to because of that request. It was just, we have Appendix 1, which is a maintenance agreement that everyone signs, and Appendix 2, which is the annual certification that they actually submit. So I just had to make changes to that to not allow an owner of a property to, do their own annual inspection and say, yes, my property looks fine. So I made all those changes. That's 4 and 5. And if you'd like, I could zoom to those pages. Basically, 14 to 17 are where those changes were. You good? Yeah. Hopefully everybody read it. So yeah, I did make those changes. Any questions on those or comments about how they were written?
The only question I had, and maybe I missed it because I know I missed a meeting, but I know we did discuss the possibility of an urbanized area standard and a different standard for more rural agricultural type areas. And I don't know if we got away from that for a reason, but I lost track of the discussion. So I don't know if somebody can refresh my memory, or if we just don't want to go down that road.
Christy, do you want to speak to that, or you want me to fill him in?
If you can fill them in, I was not aware that was the preference.
At this last meeting we were at,
Yeah.
that I attended, when we discussed this, it, generally speaking, is just easier to apply it for the entire,
I got you. Okay.
I'm the enforcer
Yep.
for this, I'm the
Okay.
feet on the ground,
Yep.
rather than having to determine which set of standards. If it applies townwide,
Okay.
it's just easier.
That makes sense.
So a little more work, but ease of use
Okay.
balances.
Fair enough.
Additionally, sorry, my brain kicked into gear. Additionally, the standards that we're adopting are the state standards, which apply at the same threshold that we're adopting them. So anybody that disturbs one or more acres of land, whether they're inside or outside our urbanized area, they already have to comply with these
Okay.
same standards.
That's
So,
what it
yeah,
was.
it didn't make sense.
That's what it was. Thank you for refreshing my memory.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
That too, yes. And then Irish chimed in that it's easier administratively for
Okay.
everyone.
All right.
Yeah. All right, so that's good. And then, any other questions on those?
No.
Okay. So then for item 5 here, on the non-stormwater discharges, the general permit required that we get any, illicit connections corrected within 60 days. You guys wanted to see that reduced to 30 days.
Correct.
So I've made that change. And that is on page 17 of the document. I got that page number right. No, not about this page number right. Oh yeah, the other pages, post-construction was page 11.
Nice.
So these are this one's on page 17. And then you also wanted to allow the code enforcement officer to be able to shorten that time even more for both repairs to a stormwater maintenance system for post-construction, or whether it was, dumping or discharging or connections into the storm drain system. So you want the code officer, if it needs to get done quicker, you want the code officer to be able to say, you need to cease and desist now, or you only get 1 week to correct this. So we've built that language into both of those sections, 7.22 and 7.23.
All right.
So any questions about those changes?
No, ma'am.
And then the last thing that you had asked me about, we discussed this both at the December 1st meeting, as well as an earlier meeting where we discussed these erosion sedimentation control. I cannot remember which of you had asked me about this, but you were concerned about and interested in the concept of applying the, more stringent erosion and sedimentation control standards when developments are in or adjacent to the natural resources. And you wanted to see if there was an opportunity to make things a little more stringent and be even more protective of natural resources.
Yeah,
So
I believe that was for any feeders that go directly into the Salmon Falls River. I think that's what we had discussed, is to be maybe more stringent in those areas. And is there provision for doing that?
Yeah, so just for the Salmon Falls River, I would have to adjust the language that I have proposed for you, which begins on page 18, and I will turn to that if I can and walk you through those. But I had lighted in, again, I had a light bulb go on after New Year's, and on page 18, if you guys want to zip to that also.
I don't have page 18.
Page 18, I thought, well, we do have the shoreland zoning requirements, and the shoreland zoning standards apply within 250 feet of any, the high water line of any great pond or river, Salmon Falls River, within an upland edge of a freshwater wetland, or within any land that's within 75 feet of a normal high water line of a stream.
That's good.
And so I lighted in on shoreline zoning, and I thought, well, that right now the language for erosion and sedimentation control for shoreline zoning is pretty light. It's down here. So again, you'll see the red line strikeout. It just had said before that you have to do erosion and sedimentation control in accordance with the DEP guidelines. And you had a couple of other standards here. And I thought if you wanted to be more protective, that you could require a formalized, written erosion and sedimentation control plan prepared by a qualified ESC person, and that ESC plan would have to be in accordance with the Chapter 500 A, B, and C, because it's not right now, and that would be regardless of how much disturbance. So the difference would be this would be basically any disturbance, you'd want a qualified person to.
I think we'd be missing the point of just being good stewards to our community and our environment if we didn't do that.
That's correct.
And so I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it, but I think being a little more restrictive on the waterway areas is critical, but I don't want to speak for the whole board. I just want to make sure you guys are in agreement with that before we go down that road.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's better to be more restrictive and look at each one of these on a case-by-case basis as they come before the board.
Okay. Yeah, I think we would like to adopt that verbiage in the new document.
That's our drinking
Okay.
water.
Is Lee J still on?
No, I believe he left.
Okay. Yeah, great. I think that's good. So not just for the Salmon Falls, to clarify, that would not be just for the Salmon Falls River, but that would be for any river streams, anything
Yes.
that triggers the shoreline zoning.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, I like that terminology better anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought that
So-
was a good place for that.
Dave, are we
So-
looking for a motion this evening?
No,
to,
so-
no? Okay.
What you need to do, you can approve this change tonight, but we want to schedule a public hearing first. So
Okay.
I suggest that we schedule a public hearing for the first meeting of February,
Okay.
and then we can have Christie come back if you want, and then you guys will vote on it. What Christie's going to do within the next couple weeks is she's just going to make the changes that you guys had asked for, and I will have fresh copies for all 6 of you, and we can go off of that. Schedule a public hearing, close the public hearing, and then you guys can vote on that. And then I got to get that to the selectmen. I got to present it to the selectmen probably by the end of February, because it's going to be
On the
that's
next
the
ballot.
deadline that we're looking at to have the voters vote on it by June.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Christie?
It does, but I didn't hear any changes from tonight's letter. Like the letter that I wrote on January 3rd, it sounds like the language is good the way it is,
Okay.
right? So no
Yeah.
changes to be made, so you can use this.
If the waterways piece is in there, that
It is.
Okay.
It is. It's
Excellent.
on. It's
Excellent.
right. It's in here. I wrote it up
Okay.
right here.
So what?
I figured you'd want to see it in black and white.
So what Christy and I are going to do is next week she's going to send me the copy that you guys are going to hopefully approve the first meeting of February and have the public hearing on it. So she's going to send it to me. I will have 6 copies for everybody. We'll vote on it and go from there.
Move it on.
Mr. Berman?
I got a question. I don't know if it's for code enforcement or if it's for Christie, but in section 12.4, where it says impact on water quality or shorelands, it appears it was reduced from 100 feet to 75 feet.
We discussed that on the last meeting to be more restrictive, I think.
What?
Or did it? Or no?
Well, it says 75. I thought we were at 100.
I don't have a copy in front of me. Christy, are you?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Are you referring to the letter I wrote or your own ordinance?
It's in the ordinance at section 12.4.
12.4, sorry, all right, let me,
It says impact on water quality or shoreline. Yours is different?
Yeah.
No, it's something different.
What does yours say?
Within a strip of land, 100 feet inland from
12.4?
Yep.
So 12 is,
12.4.
so this is your land use ordinance. And Article 12 is how to do amendments.
I've got 3 different documents.
There's 3 different documents here. Then.
I'm
Oh,
confused.
there's 3 of them.
So was it in subdivisions or I mean, because shoreline zoning is Article 14.
And it says 75 feet.
And this is pretty standard, yeah.
Okay.
Got a little bigger for you.
That is the state standard, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
75 feet, state standard?
Yeah.
All right.
Weird. I thought it was 100 from before, right?
70, yeah, no, 75 and 250.
It should be 100. That's what the ordinance says, the town ordinance says 100. We'll look at it.
Just want to make sure we don't have conflicting documents because it's going to create a headache for you guys. So
Yeah,
will we
no.
update our local documents as well? We would have
It's,
to.
Christie is going to send me what we're going to be voting on,
Okay.
and you'll get
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So take the copies that you have and just do me a favor,
Draft.
write draft on them.
Okay.
I'll have
Yeah.
Write draft on them so you'll realize that that's not the official document. You will get the official document via email, and I'll have a hard copy for you next meeting.
Okay.
Fine.
Does that sound good,
This was
Christy?
based on the June 14th,
Yes.
2022? Okay, this is the one I pulled off the website, so
Okay.
14.
I think I have the right one, and I don't see 100.
Yeah, it says
The reason,
75.
the reason I'm bringing that up, my wife and I are on the comp plan, so this is being discussed there, so that's why this seems different. So, just wanna make
Maybe
sure
the
it's
comp
same.
plan says to change it to 100, right?
No, I think it was 100. This one. We'll look at it.
All right, I'll let you go.
We'll get it straightened out.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Christy, for your time and your
Yeah.
expertise. We appreciate it very much.
No worries, thank you for your time.
Yes, Christy,
Thank you.
did you have something for me?
I'll send you an updated document next week.
Okay, thank you so
Of
much.
the Word document. Thanks.
Okay.
Have a nice night.
Thank
as
you.
well.
You too. Okay. Moving on to our next agenda item. Any new business? Nothing. Nothing for you guys. Okay. And we will open up the second public comment. I have to. No. Okay. All right. So anybody who would like to come up?
Craig Keisker, 160 Pine Hill Road. I can ask a quick question about what we talked about first, or no? I'm trying to do right procedure.
Go ahead, sir.
You guys said the bamboo on the condos area. The bamboo that I'm aware of, it falls by an old building that, if you look at the lines, I don't have the drawing anymore, gentlemen. You guys have to stop me from asking. But it falls on the line between the existing house and where these condos are going to be built. So the realty company owns a whole piece right now, so I was just trying to deal with it now.
Yes,
And
sir.
if you feel they should have someone of knowledge walk the property, that'd even make me feel better. But,
Okay.
I don't believe there's any more anywhere else. I knew the lady really well, but that she died 8 or 10 years ago, and I don't know how it travels. You know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
the gentleman that's there now has cut around that area and kept it very conscious, and I don't think it's a huge area, but it does involve both of those soon-to-be divided, which would be a property line. And that was it. The other
So
thing,
if it gives you any measure of comfort, sir, I think it's our intent to make it a condition of approval that they try to eradicate the bamboo that's there. So
Mr.
given-
Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, we don't have the applicant here. It's still an open application.
Understood. Okay. So, we will do our due diligence to ensure that, and I would offer this, if nothing was done, if the land wasn't developed at all, you'd have no assurance that the bamboo wouldn't spread. So I think you're in a better bargaining point working with the developer. That's just an opinion.
Yes, and from what I understand from reading American Society of Bamboo, and actually, I know people that work for attorneys, and when it became an issue the first time people brought it up, I realized it was there, and they said, "Be careful, that comes across." I would have to go after the person who owned the home. And they are liable, and almost all cases have been found that way in our court so far. The precedence is there, according to both of those, American Society of Bamboo and legal counsel. So you do have someone to go after. The damages, all that. That's only lawyers make money. But the other thing was, you were talking about the schools and 70 people less, but how many? Since whatever it was, 2002 or whatever, how many more permits are we now offering than we have in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years? I mean, and 2 I believe was 8 or whatever, 8 something in Berwick, a little higher than the state average, because we have good schools and we have good people, and we brought people here for a lot of reasons, close to the border, a lot of different things. We all know them, we all live them. So anyway. I appreciate the information. It's really enlightening, and especially after we just talked about it a couple of weeks ago. But I'd love to hear that end of it. Also,
I think if you go back and you watch previous, she has the study, which we'll get to in a moment. But if you look at previous meetings, our town is seeing an influx of development, and that comes with pros and cons. But I think one point that our board has always taken into consideration, and the question is asked with every new development, how does this affect our services, i.e. our municipality, our firefighters, our police department, and the school system? And that is always at the forefront of our mind, because it's our responsibility to ensure that we have the resources to support the growth of our small town. And so it is something that we take very seriously. So I would encourage you to please, that this comes up every time there's a new subdivision.
Sure.
We get it, but it is something that's in the forefront of our mind, and we do not want to exceed the capacity of our resources in the town.
And I think you're totally genuine with what you're saying. And but I also believe that whoever cut the thing where every 6 months we'll kind of visit it, and we can just have a quick phone call, and there's no numbers behind it. And come on, we all know our sewer capacity is huge, but when Prime left, concrete and metal don't sit empty well. So you may say that we have this much sewer, but how much of it is actually active and doesn't need large service and maintenance? Things like that really add up. And people that live here and lived here for a long time and do construction understand that, when we lost Prime, we lost, about 3/4 of the sewer department sat empty, and concrete and metal don't sit well empty, but it still looks like we have the capacity. Because you could rebuild it but it's not necessarily all usable. And those things are why each time one of these subdivisions may, come in front of us, that it is important that we attach a real number, and we make the sewer department and the water department responsible for that real number. Because we all struggled with water last year, and now we're adding more. On that water thing, and we pump it from a live river, so we have to kill it. It's not coming out of a well up by the tower. It's or several wells. It's coming from something living that affects other things like that also. And those are why I thought it was neat that it said that we need a real number, and then being involved in this for the first time. Was kind of surprised that people have just set it aside, and there is no real number, and we don't actually have a number at the end of 6 months of what it cost us and what burden it did put on our fire, and they're volunteer, just like you gentlemen. You know what I mean? And we all know the loss is happens way too much and stuff, and we put it on them. So. Yeah, anyway, not to get on that.
Well, thank you for bringing the important issues to light, sir. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our census contributes to infrastructure, so.
Correct.
That's why it's important that we count every 10 years.
Yep.
Bill, you had the school or the
So-
building?
Just wanted to make sure that, Craig, that you're aware that the handout that was sent out around earlier, I think there's a copy on the chair in front of you there. The first page has the planning board procedures. The second page has the number of students in the school district, which they always have accessible because they always have to know how many kids they have. But the third page in that is actually a number of houses that have been built in that same time period. So, believe it or not, this one, the photocopy cuts out at 21, but there was only 30 houses built in 2021. So it's, with the way things are written into our ordinance in regards to only so many permits allowed per subdivision for under certain circumstances, there's a lot of different pieces in our ordinance, which I've been reviewing very carefully because of multiple things going on in the town right now. There's a lot that's built in there just that restricts growth naturally through density requirements, through building permit allotments, through planning board shifting things through phases in developments that are multi houses versus condo units. So it's not as bad as it seems, if that makes any it's not as bad as it seems. The town has made some, from what I see, coming in and reading the ordinance, they've made some very good kind of preemptive strikes to prevent overgrowth. And with the changes that they have done to the ordinance, this, I'm guessing it was 2005 that you were sitting out here waiting for a building permit in line. You won't need to do that now because there won't be so much of this growth like you saw in 2004, 2006, where you're doing almost 100 houses a year. You're not going to see that happening as much and as frequently because of the rest of the ordinances. So it's not as extreme as it sometimes feels. But you do have a copy of that you can take home with you, okay?
Any other public comment? Okay, informational items? No informational items.
I don't have any informational items. I know Lee J's not here. I just thank you tonight. I know that you missed the last meeting. But this is a good meeting, and we're doing everything within regulations. When I was a planning board chair, I was telling Phil, I remember every 20 or 30 meetings would be contentious. We'd have a lot of people here, and we'd have to schedule 2 public hearings, and we'd have to go back to the rules, and those are the rules. So I just thank you for tonight. Yeah.
I was part of that.
Yeah, you were. You were, Jerry.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I got one question. Where do we stand with the South Berwick project?
That is, it's being, they're going back to the developers. So that is going to be, I'm just going to say, I'm going to be there, and Hannah's going to be there from SMTDC. You guys don't have to come unless you guys are going to vote.
Now, here's to clarify that, because this
but
was a confusing email from Hannah.
It was confusing.
If you don't waive your right to vote, you have to attend all the meetings that
Right.
project's discussed at. Otherwise, if you don't go, then you lose your right to vote.
Right. I would suggest that you guys would come to all the meetings and vote on it. I would suggest that you don't waive your right to vote by not showing up. Either way, I'm still going to go because there's going to be not development, but we're going to have to do something with the road and security, surety. Yeah.
Surety bond.
Surety bond. Yeah.
Yeah. I think to protect our rights of the people in Berwick, that we should be there
I agree.
to be part of that. So.
Absolutely, and that's why when Hannah emailed us about that process and how that procedure could go, I actually had to email her back and ask for clarification because what she emailed just kind of wasn't exceptionally clear, in my opinion. So basically, kind of boiled it down to dumb builder speak, which is either we go and we are able to vote, or we don't go and we can't vote. And it has to be the board members.
I would suggest that you guys go. I'm not on the board anymore, but I would suggest that you guys go, and with a minimum of 4 people, which is a quorum.
Yep.
And it's not going to be weeks and weeks and weeks and months of meetings.
I see
It'll be
two-
at the most 3 meetings.
Right, I was going to say 2 or 3 more meetings, and that's it.
Correct.
I'm good with going.
Correct.
And she will still, Jen will notify Dave, and Dave will still notify you guys the same way he always notifies you.
So it'll come through email traffic then, when
Yes.
those meetings are taking place.
Okay.
Because I certainly agree with you, Dave, in the fact that I drove that road, I know the road, and it needs some serious upgrading for them to run, people, residential traffic through a commercial area. It's got to be fixed.
Correct.
I think they said it could be up to 350 trips a day.
Yeah. So, I'll go.
That's all that I have,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we adjourn our meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
You didn't vote on it or anything, but.
Amateur hour, sorry, Dave.
That's the one motion.